All right, we're back to talk about the preamble.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
So we'll talk about
It's
the intro.
it's aspirational. This is what we want to do. We don't always live up to this. It's kind of hard to read this today, I'll be honest.
Well, first thing I noticed is, even then, I guess it doesn't say "we the states of the United States." It says "we the people."
Yes, we the people. Um, and that is the first difference we get into from the Articles of Confederation. This is about the people. I would also like to note that the very first word in the Constitution is a pronoun, just so we're clear. Just for people who don't know what pronouns are. We is a pronoun. Americans have a pronoun. It's we, us.
And
And the goal is a more perfect union.
because the union before wasn't that perfect.
It was far from perfect, but also I think it's an acknowledgement that it's not going to be fully perfect, that may not be achievable. But it's the idea that we will continue to strive for more. It can be hard to look at the country and think, what's perfect about it? But I don't think the framers, first off, I'm going to say again, you cannot refer to the founding fathers as if they were of one mind about anything. I will use the term the framers, the founding fathers, as we go through this because you kind of have to. But to be clear, if Alexander Hamilton had said the sky was blue, 3 guys would have checked out the window.
I think you made the same joke in the last episode.
I make the same joke a lot because it is true. Specifically with Alexander Hamilton, who was not a well-liked man. In the musical 1776, John Adams keeps joking about being obnoxious and disliked, but he had nothing on Alexander Hamilton. I took a class that included discussing the Constitution when I was in college, and the joke was that Alexander Hamilton never actually said, as quoted, the people are a great beast, but he thought it a lot.
Yeah. Well, unlike Hamilton, John Adams was never shot in a duel.
It's true. It's true. And in fact, he lived long after Hamilton did and died of old age on the same day as Thomas Jefferson.
I think it was 50. They both did 50 years after the Declaration.
Yep, they both died on the 4th of July, 1826.
Right.
So it's the more perfect union is another aspirational. The first 2 clauses of this are, this is who we are. This is what we are trying to do. And then the rest of it is, this is what goes into making a more perfect union.
Establishing justice.
It's establishing justice. I have a lot of feelings about justice, and it's one where we fail a lot in this country. But it's the first thing we say we're going to do. And part of that is we were not far removed from what the founders saw as tyranny. And there's a long debate about how tyrannical George III actually was that we are not getting into here. But they thought justice was so important that John Adams defended the soldiers in the Boston Massacre and got them acquitted. That is an American ideal right there, and it's the first one we go with. Ensure domestic tranquility is partially about let's not have a civil war, please, because even in 1789, the schism that would lead to civil war was not exactly something they were unaware of. But also, let's let people go through their day-to-day lives. Let's, in a phrase that would be a thing, a false thing, but anyway, under Mussolini, and it was not actually possible in those days because of the invention, but let's make sure the trains run on time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that,
or in this case, I guess, horses and carriages.
Yeah. Let's the stagecoaches run on time. Provide for the common defense. There was no standing army, but there was the idea that if we needed an army, we would have one. And common is an important word there.
Yeah, because I think before it was just state militia. We protect ourselves. If your problems, we don't care. We don't care.
Yeah. Theoretically, under the Articles of Confederation, I mean, realistically, no, but theoretically, if someone attacked New Hampshire, South Carolina didn't entirely have to care. And under the Constitution, it's one country. You attack New Hampshire, you are also attacking South Carolina. We don't have to have treaties between the states. The Constitution is the treaty. Promote the general welfare. Let's make things better for everyone. No one person deserves more than any other person. Everyone is part of the country. The whole we live in a society thing. We do live in a society, and the general welfare means that everybody should be better off. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. We're going to keep this going. And the idea of the blessings of liberty. If we have freedom, here's all the other stuff we have that's good for us. And it's not just about us, it's about future generations. The founders wrote into the first sentence, let's keep this going for our children and our children's children. This is not about us. This is about everyone going forward. And everyone is obviously a very, limited thought at the time, because everyone is basically our legitimate white sons. But still, at least they were thinking about their legitimate white sons and thinking, let's keep a better world going for them as well. And then finally, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Here's how we're going to accomplish all of that other stuff.
A lot of thought in this one. Is it one sentence?
It's one sentence.
I don't know. Joking wise here, I think if I wrote this in an English thing, I'd probably get a bad grade.
It is a bit of a run-on. Now, let's be clear, grammar was different in the 18th century, and we will see a lot of that going forward. The Constitution is hard to read because periods apparently weren't as important in 1789. That's all I can think, because these sentences, trying to find a breaking point for a lot of the stuff that we'll get to is like, but the sentence isn't over yet.
Yeah, of course. It's like, was it like 250 years ago now? Or 230? I forget the exact dates.
Yeah, I always remember exactly how old the Declaration is, because it was in 1776 and I was born in 1976. So, my age plus 200 years. But I don't remember the Constitution as well because I don't have to. I guess I turned 13 that year, so it's my age minus 13 plus 200. So
Yeah,
that would
yeah.
make it 234. Thank you. 235. I've got a birthday coming up.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank
But
you.
anyways, this is harder to read than modern things, but not as hard to read as the King James Bible.
Well, and the King James Bible, which the founders all would have been extremely familiar with, and that is one that where we can use it as universal, even the ones who weren't Protestants. And there were a few, though not many, who weren't Protestants. But even the ones who weren't Protestant would have known the King James Bible, whether it was the Bible they used or not. And most of them were Protestant, and no few of them were Anglicans. So they would have known and used that language. But the King James Bible was written in a deliberately archaic language at the time, and was not even the common English that was used, in 16 whatever it was.
Okay. So was it modern or Middle English? It was like older English.
It's early modern English is what the King James Bible is written in.
And that was 200, and that was 200 plus years before this was even written.
It was 160 or 70 years. I don't remember exactly when the King James Bible was written, but I do remember exactly when King James took the throne, because it's when Queen Elizabeth died, and she died in 1603.
Rephrase that. We took the English throne. He already had the Scottish throne.
Yes, well, yeah, he's technically King James the first and sixth, because he's James the First of England and the sixth of Scotland. There's a whole thing. Scotland was really mad when Queen Elizabeth II took the throne, because she was listed as Queen Elizabeth II, but there has never been a Queen Elizabeth I of Scotland. So it's a mess. It really is. I think the current decision is that the monarch will take the higher number, whatever number that is. Oh. So if there's another James somewhere in the succession, he will become James the eighth, I believe.
Yeah. Well, technically, sees the Queen Elizabeth I of Great Britain.
Yes. Yeah. No. Regnal numbers for Great Britain. Just sort of assume that it's all England.
Yeah. This is funny that. I know we're getting off topic here, but it's funny that Edward I of England is technically like the fifth or sixth Edward.
Yeah, no, and I can never remember which Edward is which anyway. They're all Edward the something, as far as I'm concerned.
Edward the Martyr, Edward the Confessor.
Yeah, well, the thing is Queen Elizabeth's younger brother was an Edward, and that is the period of English history that I know the best, and even that Edward is Edward the something to me.
The sixth.
I just can't keep them straight. It's not my fault.
Yeah, I used to be all into this in high school. Like I read books about this, all the family trees and stuff. That's weird.
Yeah, anyways, my current purse book is about the illegitimate children of Henry VIII.
Yeah, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, but the quote that I was looking for that I found about the posterity is it's a John Quincy Adams quote, and he was not in the Constitutional Convention. He was being I don't remember if he was ambassador or aide to his father who was ambassador or something, but I believe he was in Russia at the time.
Oh, so he was already born by then.
Oh yeah. But the John Quincy Adams quote is, "I am a warrior so that my son may be a merchant, so that his son may be a poet." And that's the our posterity thing. It's we want to make things easier on our children so that they can produce great things that they will have time to that we did not. And it's a beautiful ideal.
And this was a new thing for the whole world. I heard it was. Anybody else had even tried this at this point, or is this a?
Republics had existed. obviously, because Rome had had a republic. I believe the Icelandic constitution is older than ours. But what we did was unite smaller political entities not under an empire, but under a republic. You know, the empire was hardly new.
Yeah.
But what I'm thinking of is really the Holy Roman Empire is arguably what if the United States but monarchy for at least parts of its history. You know, it's a whole bunch of smaller countries, all of whom have their own kings. And for a while, technically, the Holy Roman Empire or emperor was elected, but he was still an emperor with absolute authority
he was
over
elected,
the empire.
He was elected, but he was still the same. For 400 years, he was the same family member.
Right. Well, and he was even before then. You know, he was elected, but he was elected by a bunch of kings. You know, so it's not like the common people had a vote. I don't know, and I'm not sure you could really look it up, but I don't know I can't compare what percentage of the population could vote in like the Roman Republic and ancient Greece and places like that versus what percentage of the population could vote in the United States in 1789. But I am pretty sure a larger percent of the population could vote in 1789 than in any republic before then. And yeah, that still wasn't a high enough percentage, in no small part because, you know, slavery was a thing, and even free black men didn't have the vote. And of course, women didn't have the vote because you can't let women vote.
And we'll get to those a little bit later.
Yeah.
But for an intro, how do you think this goes?
I think this is good.
Right. When we return, we'll get to the first of many compromises.